All right, we're going to work the thumb separation on top-down mittens for the thumb portion before moving on to the gusset. So I am doing these mittens 2 at a time. This is just a miniature pair. Okay, so this is the right mitten with the marker and the left mitten. First thing we're going to do is a provisional cast on for the thumb stitches of the right mitten. So you have your working yarn left over from the back of your mitten. I like to take a piece of waste yarn with a slip knot, place it on my needle. Then you will have your working yarn and your waste yarn together. You'll take your needle, you're going to go under your working yarn from the inside. We're going to go outside the waste yarn, back under, past the working yarn, and back out. So that creates 2 stitches for the thumb. So it's just a provisional cast on. So again, we're going to go inside and under the working yarn, over and outside the waste yarn, back under it, under the working yarn, grab the working yarn, and bring it back up. So there's 4. So every rotation gives you 2 stitches. Okay, I'm going to do 8 stitches for this thumb. So we've got 4. I need to do 2 more passes to get my extra 4 stitches. So underneath the working yarn, over and around the waste yarn, under it, under the working yarn, over the working yarn, and back under the waste yarn. Okay, so now I have 6. That gave me 2 more stitches. Last one, under the working yarn, over the waste yarn, under the waste yarn, under the working yarn, over the working yarn, and back up. So I should have 2, 4, 6, 8 stitches now. Okay, and then I like to take another end of my waste yarn as a slip knot and just put it on my needle for the time being. I pull them off later, but just to kind of keep things tight and together as I move on to the next side of my work. Going to rotate my needles, going to work across the tops of my mittens. Oh, excuse me, get this put back on here. Okay. Going to work across the top of my mittens and then go over to do the thumb of my left mitten. I'm going to pull tight for this first stitch because of the gap, the thumb stitches and the regular. I want to make sure that this space is nice and closed. So I'm going to knit across the top of my mitten. Sorry, it's kind of hard to do through the camera. Okay, so I've worked across my right mitten. I'm going to work across my left one now. Okay, and we're ready for casting on the thumb stitches of this left mitten. So I've worked across the top of it. I'm going to grab a piece of waste yarn with a slip knot in the end, place that on my needle. I grab the tail on the back so that I can just keep those knots together. You want your waste yarn to be the back string, and you want your working yarn to be this front one here. You're going to go under the working yarn, over and around the waste yarn, under the working yarn, and grab it and pull it back up to the top. That gives me 2 stitches. I'm going to go over this working yarn, under, over the waste yarn, under the waste yarn, under the working yarn, over the working yarn, and pull it back up. It gives me 2 more stitches. Every time it will give you 2 stitches. Okay, so under the working yarn, over the waste yarn, under the waste yarn, under the working yarn, over the working yarn, and you're going to go under that waste yarn to pull it back up. So now I've got 6, I need 8, so I'm going to do it once more. Under the working yarn, over the waste yarn, under the waste yarn, under the working yarn, over the working yarn, pull that back under the waste yarn. And I should have 8 now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Now that I'm done with that, I like to put the other end of my waste yarn on my needle with a slip knot. I take it off later. It's just a way to keep it out of the way for a moment while I rejoin my mittens. Now, let me get this string out of the way so you can see. I'm going to resume working in the round after adding those thumb stitches, so you can see those thumb stitches there. They're going to be on that waste yarn so that later on I can come and pick them up to work the thumb. So I'm going to pull my needle. I'm going to begin knitting across the bottoms of my mittens, but I want to pull this first one tight. That way there's not a big gap between the last thumb stitch and the beginning of my mitten bottom. So pull that first one tight and then knit across your bottom stitches. There's the bottom stitches of that mitten. Now I'm going to work across the bottom stitches of the next mitten. When I get back to these thumb stitches, I'm going to slip this slip knot onto my other needle. And I'm going to knit each of these loops that I cast on. I like to pay attention to them to make sure they're not twisted. They shouldn't be if you did your cast on properly. You should all line up appropriately. You should just be able to knit them as normal stitches. double check your count. 2, 4, 6, 7. I have one more to go. And there. Are the thumb stitches. You'll do the same with the other mitten. You'll work across the tops of your mittens and work across the stitches that you cast on for the other thumb. And resume working in the round for the rest of your mittens.